Here's the portrait we're going to develop. It's going to be fine art boudoir. We're going to use my LRSA concept, which is Liquefy, Retouch, Separate Aesthetics. It is a way for you to streamline your workflow and get through photos quicker and in an organized fashion. At least these kinds of photos, the portraits that I do, which are typically against solid backgrounds or backgrounds that don't vary too much with detail or clutter in the background or color for that matter. So, first step is liquefy. So, this step may not be required. This depends on the portrait. I mean, if you're shooting a child's portrait, there's obviously no reason to do that. But in this case, it's a model, and she is okay with us doing this. So, going to do that for her. Just tucking in a little bit. Okay, and that's all we really need to do with the liquefy. I'm going to run 3-layer frequency separation now to do the retouching. I'm going to run it twice, one for the face and one for the body. I'm going to start with the face. And this is a 3-layer frequency separation action that I developed. It basically is kind of like frequency separation 2.0. It is the most realistic frequency separation action that I've used. And we're going to run it in 2 parts. Like I said, one for the face, one for the body. So the first is the face, and going to take a look at this preview here. Basically what you want to do is bring it down to a point where color disappears from the portrait, but we're going to bump it up about a couple of spots here to 5. So 3 is about where everything's gone. 5 is where I'm going to set it, because the problem with true frequency separation is if you separate them completely and then you start to do your retouching, you end up developing a portrait that looks like CGI or plastic. So you have to be careful with that. You want to make it as realistic as possible. So a good balance is always desired, and I have found that when you get to the point where there's no color for the face, a good rule of thumb is to bump it up another 2 or 3 radius pixels, and you're in good shape. And you don't risk it being plasticky or CGI-y. So we'll try 5 and we'll see if this works. When it runs a Gaussian blur on the low pass, and what you do is you take the number that you initially chose and multiply it times 4. So we're going to go with 20 on this. It then runs a high pass on the medium, a high pass filter on the medium pass layer, and you input the same number, 20 in this case. And then it runs a final Gaussian blur on the, let's see here, yeah, it runs another Gaussian blur on the medium pass, and you put in the original number. So in this case, it's going to be 5. All right, so now we can edit the face, and I'm just using my brush. I'm on the medium pass here. It's a layer mask, and I'm going to change to black and pump my flow up to 100, in fact. And it's going to be pretty quick here. There's not like a lot of work to be done. You don't want that. That's really it. We don't want to darken anything, so that's going to be the extent of our retouch on the face. Just smooth out some things. We'll fix the lips a little later. Actually, this might work for the lips. Let me take a quick look here. Yeah, we don't want to edit them that drastically just yet. So we're good on the face. We're going to go ahead and stamp visible. On a PC, that's Shift Control Alt E. I believe on a Mac it's Shift Command Option E. All right, so now we're going to get rid of these layers here, and we're going to run this action again for the body this time. And for the body, because it's taking up a larger area, the basic rule of thumb is for parts of the skin or the portrait that take up a large area of the picture, larger number. For parts of the skin that take up a very small or smaller portions of the picture, then you go with smaller numbers. That's why we went with 5 for the face. But now we're dealing with the body, and we're going to go with a higher radius here. So I'm going to put 12 in just as a starting point to see if that works. It's a good starting point that I have found works with 3/4 shots. Okay, and so the same idea is 12, 48, 48, 12 in that one. So now I'm going to take my brush and edit. That doesn't work there. Got to be careful about our retouching. What the blur will do is soak up the surrounding, anything that surrounds the skin. So as you noticed up here, I was going to go ahead and apply the blur or apply the retouch, but it's actually darkening the skin a little bit, which may not be a bad idea because her breasts are brighter compared to the rest of her body. So let me see if I can make this work. And yeah, that's not working. It's creating these edges like this, and that doesn't look good. So we'll deal with that separately. Now I'm going to move on to the rest of the body here. And that's about all I can do with the body here. We don't want to retouch her tattoos. All right, so we're done with retouching on the body. I'm going to run another 3-layer frequency separation on for her breasts to kind of see if we can retouch those. I'm going to go down with a very low radius on those. So 3, and then 3 times 4 is 12. So 12 there, 12 again, and 3. All right, and we'll zoom in and see if we can if those make any difference here. And it doesn't look like it's affecting too much here. So let me go to my high pass and see if I can get rid of these discolorations. Oh, okay, I see what's happening. I think, let me go back. I ran the action on the wrong layer, so let's do that again on the right layer. And that's almost too much, but we'll bring our flow down to, yeah, there we go. Just smoothing this out a little bit. And we're going to move to high pass to get rid of this blemish, and now we're going to go to low pass to get rid of the color. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to burn that away or dodge it away. Let me go ahead and stamp again. Okay, I think that's fine. So now we are now done with Liquefy and retouching. Now we want to separate. So that's LRSA. We're done with L and R. So now we're on to separate, and then we're going to move on to aesthetics. So the next thing, I have a hairline or something that's on my sensor, so I'm going to get rid of that. And now I'm going to select my quick selection tool and click select subject. This will outline the subject with marching ants, our selection. Okay, and as we can see, it's not perfect. So we'll go in here and see if we can just help it out a little bit. I'm holding my Alt key to give me a minus symbol here. I'll tell you what, we'll leave that alone because that's too complicated with the hair. Another thing we can do is go to select and choose similar. And that didn't work. It's choosing the whole thing. So we're going to go with this selection. We're going to select the select menu. I'm going to hold down my shift key and go down to select and mask. Okay, and this will bring up the refine edge dialog box, and it will give me this view. There's various views you can choose. You can choose marching ants, overlay, on black, on white, and various others. I prefer on black. So what I'm going to do now is just use the refine radius tool and just basically outline the model. And this will refine the edge or refine the selection even more. Okay, and then we're going to go up here and do the same thing. All right, and okay, so that's what we have as our selection. You'll notice there is some area right here that it missed. We're going to deal with that later. It may not be a huge deal for us to, we may not even have to correct it. But what we're going to do next so that we remain non-destructive is change the output to new layer with layer mask. And we're going to click OK. Okay, and that will create a new layer, but it'll apply the mask that we just refined with the refine edge tool. Okay, so Photoshop will do its thing. Okay. So what we want to do now, we have our new mask. What we want to do is deselect this, then check mark the layer underneath it. By default, Photoshop will turn off that layer, right? Because it thinks you want to work with this new layer. But what we're actually going to do is use this layer. But we're going to click on it. We're going to choose lasso, make sure our feather's at 0. Okay, and then we're going to circle the model. And then I'm going to go to edit and fill. And we're going to make sure contents are on content aware. And we're going to click OK. And that should remove the model from the picture. And Photoshop will basically attempt to fill that in with, it'll interpolate and try to fill that in with what it thinks should be there. It's going to use the surrounding data, the surrounding color outside of the selection to fill it in. Sometimes this can take a little while. So we'll just wait it out here. All right, so that's the result. That's acceptable because what we're going to do next is blur the heck out of it. So we're going to go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and we're going to bring this up, and I typically hover around 130 pixels. That's my go-to. I'm going to click OK on that. Okay, so now our background is separated from our model. I'm going to click the layer to turn our model back on here. And now what we can do is take a look at the mask and see if there's anything we need to fix. And for our purposes, this looks pretty good. There's some things up here that it missed. I'm going to fix that. And there's some things around here. It's kind of gray right there. I'm going to fix along the edges here. Okay, so what we'll do to fix that quickly is switch over to brush. We're going to change it to overlay. Because what overlay does basically is it makes white things whiter, and then it makes black things blacker. Okay, so brush tool, we're on white, and we'll just bring our flow up to 100. Okay, now there's parts where there's gray right here, as you can see, so we have to be careful around there because it'll try to make those white. So we're just going along the parts. Let's shrink our brush up here. We're going along the edges. We have a little bit of spill, that's okay. Okay. And we're getting the extra hairs too, flyaway hairs. All right. So that is where we're at. That looks pretty good. So what we're going to do next is add a canvas, a digital canvas. Okay, so what we'll do, I'm going to go to my canvases here. And I'm going to choose an appropriate canvas. This one, I'm thinking something like this might be good. Let's open it up and take a look at its pattern, see what it looks like. Yeah, that looks good. So what I'm going to do is bring this into Photoshop, copy it over here. Okay, I'm going to copy this, or sorry, click and hold and drag this over to the portrait. I'm going to get sometimes you'll get an error message indicating that the target document has a different depth than the source document. That's okay. Just click yes. And I'm going to go ahead and resize this real quick. Okay. And then depending on the photo, depending on the look, I'm going to go usually with 3 different options. It's either going to be screen, overlay, or soft light. So let's start with screen and take a look how that looks. So that's a little bright. And that's pretty typical. Light and screen, color dodge, linear dodge, and lighter color. These are all lighten overlays, basically. These are all blending modes that lighten the picture or lighten the layer. So we'll try overlay next. It's a little dark. Let's try soft light, see what that looks like. That looks about where we want to be. Okay, and so what we can do next is I'm holding the Alt key, and I'm going to click and drag this layer mask up to the canvas layer. And right now the canvas is applied to the mask, which is the model, but we don't want that. We want the inverse of that. So I'm going to click on the layer mask here, and I'm going to hold Control on a PC, and then hit I, and that will invert it. Okay. So now what we want to do is try to fix these gaps. All this gray area right here, right there. It's a little bit over here, a little bit here, here, and down here. Now, what's nice, or at least, yeah, what's nice about how I view this process is it can be kind of cool to merge the canvas with the model. It creates a very artistic feel. And so what we're going to do is make sure this mask is selected on the canvas. We're going to go to brush, or to our brush, and we're going to make sure white is selected. And we're going to go ahead and fill this in. And I'm not going to worry right now. I'm on overlay. I'm on overlay, so I'm going to switch that back over to normal. And I'm not going to worry too much about what it's doing to the model skin. I can fix that later. My point right now is to just fill this stuff in. I'm going to switch over to black real quick, and I can adjust that. Now, I might end up burning that, using that as a burn, basically. All right, and then you'll see kind of fringes here, and we'll just kind of paint those in. Same with that. Okay, and then around the hair, just to fix this. Let me check this mask because, oh no, that looks good. I'm seeing a little bit of a discoloration on the very ends here, but it's natural. Let me take a look. Okay, so something's off right here with the discoloration on the ends of the arms. I'm not seeing anything here, so I'm not sure what's causing that. Ah, okay. So if we take a look at this mask, we see the canvas bleeding onto the model here, and it's causing a little bit of discoloration. So we'll actually, yeah, so let's switch to black. Interesting. So yeah, it's causing, let's see here. Okay, well, let's go ahead. I'm not sure what's causing that. That's actually kind of bizarre. Huh. Let's take a look at this again. See, normally that's part of the original mask, but I'm not sure what's causing that. That's interesting. But I'm not going to let it worry me too much. Although, see now, okay, let's fix this. Bring my flow down a little bit because I'm going to fix this right here. Bring it down to 5%. Okay, and continuing forward here, and just filling in this stuff. Not too worried about it. As small as those things look, though, they can become an issue. Let's just double check this side. Okay. So now we have our model against the background, pretty well separated. It looks good. Now what we need to do is start to work on unifying the background a little more with the model to make it look realistic, to make it look like it's an actual canvas in the background. So what we'll do next is bring up a curves adjustment layer, and we're going to bring it down. And let's try this. Let's go to our elliptical marquee tool. We're going to draw a ellipse here and just kind of draw out a vignette. Place it right about there. I'm going to right click on the open space here and select inverse. And then I'm going to feather this. And my go-to is like 600. So we're going to feather at 600. And now we're going to select curves. And it will apply that mask, that selection to the mask rather on the new curves layer. So what we can do is start to bring this down. Okay, and that looks pretty good. What we're going to do though, now as you notice the vignette, it covers up the bottom half of the model. So we're going to switch back to our brush, switch to a black brush. I'm going to control click on the original mask down here so that it keeps us within the boundaries of the model and we're not touching the background canvas. And let's bring my flow down to 9. And we'll just paint in and attempt to follow the light. Trying to keep this realistic here. And we'll deselect, and that looks pretty good. We're going to go back to the canvas though, or rather to the curves layer, And we're going to bump this up a little bit and give it a little bit of a matte feel. A little mysterious here. Okay, so we have our basic photo here. And now it's just about kind of refining. We might want to dodge and burn the hair. We might want to smooth out the hair so it doesn't look so fragmented. We might want to add a little bit of smoke effect, or even what's called sfumato. It's an Italian term for basically kind of blending colors. It's a very painterly type look. So now what I'm going to do is, and also dodge and burn here to add some dimension. So I'm actually going to do that next. Actually, what I'm going to do is adjust her eyes, add a little bit of life to her eye. So let's, and by the way, we're in the aesthetics part, right? We've already separated the model from the background, and this is, from that point on, it was all aesthetics, adding the canvas, adding the curves layer. So I'm going to actually put this curves layer into a group. Actually, I'm going to put the canvas in there with it. I'm going to create a new layer real quick above this, we'll call this model mask. Okay, and I'm going to create a new layer real quick. You can just go to layer and select new, and then select layer, or just shift control N. All right, and I'm going to switch to my brush. I'm going to keep it on white, and I'm going to get in on the eye here and just give the eye a little bit of life. Shrink up my brush here. Make sure my flow's at 100. And we're going to circle the model here. And we're going to switch this over to overlay. Okay, as you can see, that really kind of brightens the eye. That's a little bit too much, obviously. So what we're going to do is bring the opacity down to 0 and creep up to a point that we think looks decent, right? So right about there, I think. And that looks pretty good. So next is, let's see, so we'll call this one eye glint. Okay. And let's do a dodge and burn layer. We're going to put the dodge and burn layer above, actually underneath the canvas. So I'm going to create a new layer again. All right, and we're going to do fill, and we're going to choose 50% gray. Okay, then we're going to change this layer to soft light. And we'll call it, really this is just burn is what we're going to do. Going to switch to our brush. And we're going to accentuate the shadows here. That's the whole point of dodge and burn. Dodge will accentuate the highlights, and burn will accentuate the shadows. And we want to add dimension here, so we're going to accentuate the shadows because the exposure on the rest of the body looks pretty good. I'm going to set my flow to 8% to get started. And you're looking for shadows, and all you're doing is swiping over. Oop, let's switch over to black brush here. All you're doing is swiping over the shadows. That's a little too heavy-handed. I'm going to bring it down to 4%. Same thing here. Now, I'm not going to do it under here because we don't want to give her too much of a pronounced tummy. See, that just looks weird. It's already good the way it is. And we'll tell you what, we're going to bring this down under eye glint, actually, and then we're going to make this a clipping mask so that this burn only applies to the model mask. The way that we do that is right-click on this, and you can select Create Clipping Mask. Another way to do it is to hold the Alt key and then hover in between the two layers, and then left-click, and that will create a clipping mask. I'll go back a step and show you to select it from the menu, Create Clipping Mask. There you go, does the same thing. And that means it's only applying to the layer below it. It's not applying to the entire picture. And in this case, it's only applying to the mask. So that will lock us into the model. So let's burn shadows here and make this look more mysterious by burning shadows in here. Some people create separate dodge and burn layers for the face, for the body. You know, that's up to you. It may not be required for every picture that you do. In this case, I may create more burn layers, but right now I'm just starting with this. And again, just burning wherever I see shadow here. Okay, that looks pretty good. And you may have to back up a couple steps if you do something that you don't like. Okay, so let's take a look at the burn. That looks pretty good. Gives a little more shadow and mystery. Now what you can do is duplicate this. So we can right click on that and select duplicate layer. It'll come up with a duplicate layer. You put in a new name if you wish, just to see if additional burns work, if they create more mystery that you want. In this case, it looks good except for this part. That's a little too deep. So I'm going to delete this. And actually, let's go ahead and duplicate it again. Okay, and then I'm going to create a layer mask on this second burn copy, and then switch to my black brush to get rid of that extra shadow here. It's not required. It's a little bit too deep. So that looks pretty good. So let's take a look. We'll turn them off. That's the before. That's the after. Some really deep shadows, really pretty looking. Let's go back to the original burn layer, and let me add a little more shadow. Bring my flow back to 4. Okay. That looks great. Okay, so let's go ahead and deepen the blacks here. I'm going to create a new layer and a new adjustment layer rather, and it's going to be levels. I like to use this when I'm adjusting blacks and whites. You can do this with curves too, but for me, I like using levels just because it's a little more, it's not as linear. So let's bring this up, and we're really darkening it there, as you can see. That looks pretty good. Let's bring this curves layer above levels and take a look before. That looks good. Let's bring the curves down back. I liked it where it was. And we're actually going to bring up the whites a little bit on this too. Let's brighten up the photo just a touch. Okay. Okay, so that looks good. We're going to do a final layer. It's going to be a blank layer, and I'm going to switch to my brush. I'm going to switch to white, and I'm down. Let me bring this up a little bit. And what we're doing here now is, you know, all of this has been artistic, but this is really even more artistic, what I'm about to do. This is going to add a little bit of sfumato, and I talked about that earlier. It's going to add a little bit of drama, a little bit of that painterly feel. That's way too much. Let me bring this down to 3%. And we'll just see how that looks. That looks pretty cool. That looks incredible. I like how that looks. Okay, I'm going to do another curves layer because I feel like it needs an overall matte flavor. So I got my curves here. I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to bring it. I'm actually not going to bring it down at all. I'm just going to bring it down a touch and then lift this a little bit to see. And a lot of this is going to be kind of clicking back and forth to see what really, you know, resonates with you. There's times where I'm kind of I'm in a battle with myself because I love the matte look, but I also love contrast. And so this is where your artistic interpretation is going to need to take over. I think that looks pretty good. Right about there. That's actually a little bit too much. I'm going to bring it down just a touch. It's very subtle. But there we go. Let's take a look. Let's remove this real quick. That looks pretty good without the sfumato, honestly. But the sfumato adds kind of a smoky look. So I'm going to go with that. That's going to be my final portrait or final choice. And that's it. I hope this has helped you guys. And if you have any questions, let me know.